Right now, this very moment, there is a window open in your garden. A window that only exists in July. Miss it, and you're back to square one next spring. You're buying seeds again. You're starting from scratch again. You're doing all the same work all over again. But here's what most gardeners don't realize. And honestly, what most gardening channels never tell you. There are 12 specific vegetables and self-seeding crops that, if you get them into the ground right now, in July, will do something almost unbelievable. They will replant themselves. Not once. Not twice. Every single year. Automatically. Without you touching a thing. No new seeds. No extra cost. No starting over. The gardeners who know about these 12 plants. The ones quietly growing them in backyards across America, on allotments all over the United Kingdom, in kitchen gardens across Europe. They are playing a completely different game from everyone else. And today you're about to join them. But I have to warn you. We're counting these down from 12 all the way to number 1. And number 1 is the plant that is going to genuinely surprise you. It's a root vegetable that fed entire nations for 4 centuries, and almost nobody grows it anymore. You're going to want to stay till the end for that one. Let's go. Welcome to Evergreen Garden Life. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell right now so you never miss videos like this one. Drop a comment below and tell me what time you're watching this. I read every single one. Before we get into the plants themselves, I want to take just a moment to explain something really important. Because once you understand why self-seeding works the way it does, everything else on this list is going to make so much more sense. Every plant on this list does the same fundamental thing. At the end of its growing cycle, it produces seeds. And instead of holding those seeds in a neat little pod waiting for you to harvest them and store them and carefully replant them next season, these plants just let go. They release their seeds directly into the soil beneath them. Sometimes the wind carries them a short distance. Sometimes gravity drops them straight down. Either way, those seeds settle into the ground, go through the cold months quietly, and when the soil warms back up, they wake up. New plants come back. The garden refills itself without you doing a single thing. Now here's the part that even experienced gardeners don't always fully appreciate. Seeds that fall naturally into your garden soil actually tend to perform better than seeds you buy in a packet from a store. Why? Because they're already adapted to your conditions. They've already experienced your soil, your drainage, your local rainfall, your specific temperature patterns. The seeds that make it through winter in your garden and germinate in spring are the strongest ones. The ones most suited to surviving and thriving exactly where they are. Nature is doing the selection work for you. And why July specifically? Think of it this way. Most self-seeding crops need a complete growing cycle before they can drop viable seeds. If you plant them in July, they have enough time, typically 10 to 14 weeks, to establish themselves, flower, and set seed before the season closes. Some of those seeds go into the ground in autumn. Others wait patiently until spring. But either way, the cycle has been started. The machine is running. And here's the bonus that makes this even better. Several of the crops on today's list aren't just going to seed for next year. They're going to give you a real, genuine harvest this season as well. You're not sacrificing now for later. You're getting both. Alright. Number 12. Let's count them down. Number 12, endive. Endive is one of those plants that most gardeners in America and the United Kingdom walk straight past in the garden center, without giving it a second glance. And that's a shame, because endive planted in July does something genuinely impressive. It gets better as the season goes on. Now, endive has a reputation for being bitter. And look, if you pull a raw leaf in the middle of summer and eat it, yes, it's going to have a sharp edge to it. But here's what that reputation misses entirely. Endive thrives when you start it in July. The summer heat gets it established and growing quickly. Then, as temperatures start to drop in September and October, the plant naturally sweetens. The bitterness softens. The inner leaves blanch and become genuinely tender and delicious. That's not luck. That's endive doing exactly what it was designed to do. Here's the self-seeding part. Endive is a biennial, which means in its first year it produces the leafy rosette that you harvest and eat. In its second year, if you leave a couple of plants in the ground rather than pulling everything up, it sends up a tall flower spike, produces beautiful blue flowers that pollinators absolutely love, and then drops seed directly into your soil. Leave those seeds alone, and the following autumn you'll have new endive plants coming up without planting a single thing. The one mistake most people make with endives is harvesting every single plant they grow. Don't do that. Leave 2 or 3. Let them bolt the following spring. Let them flower. Let them seed. And the year after that, an endive will appear in your garden like it was always meant to be there. Sow seeds directly into the ground in July, about half a centimeter deep, spaced around 30 centimeters apart. Keep them well watered while germinating and they'll take care of themselves from there. Number 11. Perpetual spinach. Number 11 has one of the most honest names in the vegetable world. Perpetual spinach. And it earns that name completely. Now, despite the name, this isn't actually a true spinach. It's technically a variety of Swiss chard, but it behaves more like spinach in the kitchen than chard does. The leaves are softer, the flavor is milder, and most importantly, it doesn't bolt and give up in cold weather the way true spinach often does. Plant perpetual spinach in July and here's exactly what happens. It establishes itself through the rest of summer. It gives you harvests in autumn. It keeps producing right through winter, even through frosts, and then picks back up again in spring when almost nothing else in your garden is even thinking about growing yet. And then if you allow 1 or 2 plants to go to flower rather than harvesting them completely, they produce seeds that fall directly into the soil below. Those seeds germinate the following season. And perpetual spinach comes back. Again. Hence the name. In the United Kingdom, this is a genuine allotment staple that experienced growers have relied on for decades. In the United States, it's far less well known. Which is honestly a real shame, because winter gardens across most of America desperately need something that keeps producing when the temperature drops. This is that something. Sow it directly in July, 1 to 2 centimeters deep, spacing plants around 30 centimeters apart. Harvest leaves regularly. The more you pick, the more it grows. And always leave at least 1 plant per bed to complete its full seeding cycle. Number 10. Landcress. Number 10 is a plant that even many experienced gardeners have never heard of, and that alone should tell you something. Landcress. Also called American landcress, Belle Isle cress, or early yellow rocket depending on where you are in the world. Here's the simple version of what landcress does. It gives you almost identical flavor to watercress, that sharp, peppery, fresh bite that makes a salad come alive, without needing any standing water at all. Most people assume you need a stream or a permanently wet environment to grow watercress. That's completely true. But landcress grows in regular garden soil, and produces the same flavor profile. And it self-seeds so freely that once you plant it a single time, you will very likely never need to plant it again. Planted in July, landcress germinates quickly in the warmth, establishes itself through late summer, and then does something interesting as autumn arrives. It actually intensifies in flavor. The leaves become sharper and more peppery exactly when you want bold-tasting salad greens the most. The plant then flowers in spring, produces seed freely, and those seeds drop directly into the soil beneath it. Come the following autumn, new plants appear in the same spot without any input from you. The one mistake people consistently make with landcress is planting it in full sun, and then wondering why it struggles. Landcress prefers partial shade. Under taller crops, near a fence at the base of a hedge. These are its ideal spots. Get the positioning right, and it practically grows itself. Sow directly in July in a partially shaded spot, thin seedlings to about 15 centimeters apart, and harvest outer leaves regularly, while letting the plant keep producing from the center. Number 9. Dill. Dill has been growing in gardens across Europe and America for centuries. And somehow most people still treat it like a one-season annual that you buy, use up and replace. That's leaving so much value on the table. Here's what people don't realize about dill. It has a very strong opinion about where it wants to grow. And when it gets its way, it comes back season after season with almost no encouragement at all. Dill planted in July will bolt quickly in the heat. And that's actually exactly what you want at this stage. You're not planting it in July for a prolonged harvest of delicate leaves. You're planting it so it bolts fast, flowers, produces those beautiful flat yellow seed heads, and drops seed into your soil before the season closes. Those dill seeds will germinate the following spring. In warmer parts of the American South, or in milder areas of the UK and Western Europe, you can have multiple generations of dill self-seeding within a single calendar year. But dill does something else that goes well beyond just self-seeding, and most gardening videos never mention this. It attracts parasitic wasps, tiny beneficial insects that hunt and destroy the exact caterpillars and aphids that cause the most damage to your vegetable crops. A patch of self-seeding dill in your garden is essentially a standing army of natural pest control that redeploys itself season after season without you spending a penny on chemical sprays. The critical mistake with dill is adding heavy mulch around the plants. Mulch blocks dill seeds from making contact with the soil, and without that direct contact, they simply won't germinate. Keep the ground around your dill relatively open and bare, and let the seeds fall onto exposed soil. Scatter seeds thinly and directly into the ground in July. Dill's taproot dislikes being transplanted, so always sow where you want it to grow. And before we go any further, I want to ask you something genuinely. If you're watching this right now and you haven't subscribed yet, think about how many videos like this one you've missed. How many planting windows have already passed because nobody told you in time? That's exactly what subscribing prevents. Hit the button. Turn on notifications. Because the gardeners who stay informed are the ones whose gardens actually thrive. Don't be the one who finds out too late. Number 8. Nasturtium. If nasturtium isn't already in your garden, we need to fix that today. Because nasturtium might be the single most generous plant on this entire list. Every single part of a nasturtium is edible. The leaves taste like watercress, peppery, bright, and fresh. The flowers are beautiful, sweet with a gentle heat at the end, and they make any plate look extraordinary. Even the seed pods, when harvested young and pickled in vinegar, taste remarkably similar to capers. They have been used exactly that way in European kitchens for generations. And here's what makes nasturtium genuinely special on this list. It self-seeds with almost no encouragement whatsoever. When nasturtium goes to seed, it produces large, chunky, unmistakable seeds, much bigger than most self-seeding plants. These seeds drop to the ground, work their way into the soil naturally, and germinate the following spring with remarkable reliability. Gardeners across the United Kingdom describe nasturtium as essentially impossible to get rid of once it's established, and in the best possible way. It just keeps coming back. But here's the angle that almost nobody talks about. Nasturtium is one of the finest sacrificial companion plants you can grow. Blackflies, the tiny devastating aphids that attack bean crops every summer across Britain and Northern Europe, are absolutely obsessed with nasturtium. They cluster on it in huge numbers, which means they leave your beans, your tomatoes, and your other crops almost completely alone. You're not just growing food, you're building a trap. And the self-seeded nasturtiums that come back next year set that same trap all over again, automatically. The most common mistake people make with nasturtiums is feeding them. Nitrogen-rich soil pushes nasturtiums into producing enormous amounts of leaf growth and almost no flowers or seeds. Grow them in poor, dry, well-drained soil, the kind of soil most gardeners consider unusable, and they will reward you with flowers and seeds in extraordinary abundance. Press seeds about 1 centimeter into the soil in July, spacing them 20 to 30 centimeters apart. They germinate fast and will be flowering within 6 to 8 weeks. Number 7. Calabrese. Now this is where I need to be specific, because I'm not talking about the standard broccoli you find in supermarkets. I'm talking about Calabrese, Italian broccoli, and the difference genuinely matters. Standard broccoli produces one large central head, and then it's essentially done. Calabrese behaves completely differently. Once you harvest the central head, it keeps producing smaller side shoots continuously. It's a genuine cut-and-come-again crop in a way that standard broccoli simply isn't. And when you plant it in July, you're positioning it for an autumn harvest that most gardeners never experience, because most people plant broccoli in spring and harvest in summer. They miss the extraordinary fact that brassicas, including Calabrese, taste dramatically better after a light frost. Cold temperatures convert the plant's starches into sugars. An autumn-harvested Calabrese is sweeter, more tender, and more flavorful than anything you'd get from a summer harvest. The self-seeding element works like this. If you leave 1 or 2 Calabrese plants in the ground past their prime rather than pulling them up, they will bolt and flower the following spring. Those yellow flowers attract an enormous range of beneficial insects to your garden. And the seeds that drop from those flowers will produce volunteer Calabrese plants the season after. Free plants, from your own garden, without buying a single packet. The key mistake is harvesting every single plant completely, and then clearing the bed. Always leave 1 or 2 plants per bed to complete their full cycle. Sow Calabrese direct in July, about 1 centimeter deep, spacing plants around 45 centimeters apart. It strongly dislikes being moved once established, so direct sowing is always the better choice over transplanting. Number 6. Okra. Okra surprises people every time it makes a list like this. It's a plant largely associated with the American South, with Louisiana cooking with gumbo and stews and a very specific culinary tradition. And because of that strong regional association, gardeners outside of those communities tend to overlook it completely. That is a genuine mistake, because okra is one of the most productive warm weather crops you can possibly grow. And July is its absolute ideal planting window. Here's why. Okra needs heat, real heat, to thrive. Cold soil is its enemy. If you plant it too early in spring before the ground has truly warmed up, it sits there looking sorry for itself and does almost nothing. But plant it in July, when the soil is at its warmest point of the entire year, and okra takes off immediately. A July-planted okra plant in warmer zones, which covers most of the American South, much of the Mediterranean, and the warmer parts of the UK in a good summer, will go from seedling to producing pods in as little as 50 to 60 days. You'll be harvesting well into October. The self-seeding mechanism is straightforward. When okra pods are left on the plant to fully mature and dry out completely, they split open and release their seeds directly onto the ground below. In genuinely warm climates, parts of California, the Gulf Coast states, southern Spain, and southern France, those seeds will germinate the following year naturally. In cooler climates, collect the dried seeds carefully and store them through winter before scattering them again next July. And here's something worth knowing. Okra seed you save from your own plants is almost always stronger and more vigorous than seed from a commercial packet, because it's already adapted to your specific conditions. The most common mistake with okra is harvesting the pods too late. Once they grow longer than about 10 centimeters, the pods become woody, stringy, and genuinely unpleasant to eat. Pick them young, pick them frequently, and the plant will keep producing prolifically. Leave a few late-season pods to fully mature and dry on the plant specifically for seed saving. Sow seeds about 2 centimeters deep and 30 to 45 centimeters apart, in the hottest and sunniest spot your garden has to offer. Soak the seeds overnight before planting to speed up germination significantly. Number 5. Amaranth. Now we are getting into the genuinely exciting territory of this list. Number 5 is amaranth. And if you've never grown amaranth before, what I'm about to tell you might just change the way you think about your garden entirely. Amaranth is one of the oldest cultivated food crops on the planet. It fed entire civilizations in the Americas for thousands of years. It was a dietary cornerstone in Mesoamerica long before corn or wheat dominated the food supply. And somewhere along the way, the modern gardening world largely forgot it existed, which is genuinely remarkable, because amaranth does something almost no other plant on this list can claim. It gives you 2 completely different types of harvest from one single plant. The leaves, harvested young and tender, taste similar to spinach. Mild, slightly earthy, versatile in the kitchen whether you eat them fresh or cook them. And they are genuinely nutritious, rich in protein, vitamin C and B6, iron and calcium. These aren't just salad leaves. These are serious food. Then from those same plants, you can harvest grain. The dramatic seed heads, those tall, sweeping plumes of deep burgundy or golden color, are packed with tiny seeds that, once dried and processed, are gluten-free, protein-rich, and can be cooked like quinoa, popped like popcorn, or ground into flour for baking. One plant, 2 completely different harvests. And amaranth self-seeds so aggressively that gardeners in warmer zones of the United States describe it as the plant that simply never leaves once it arrives. Even in cooler climates like much of the UK, a mature amaranth plant dropping seed in autumn will reliably produce volunteers the following spring. July is its ideal planting window precisely because amaranth is a heat lover. It tolerates temperatures up to 38 degrees Celsius without complaint. Cold soil stops it completely. Warm July soil brings it to life almost immediately. The critical mistake people make is planting the seeds too deep. Amaranth seeds are tiny, almost dust fine, and they need to be sown barely below the surface. Just press gently into the soil with the flat of your hand. Bury them and they won't germinate. Scatter seeds thinly on the surface of warm prepared soil, press down gently, and keep moist until germination, which in July heat typically happens within 3 to 10 days. Number 4. Winter purslane. Number 4 is one of the most underrated winter salad crops in existence. And it has a history that makes it genuinely fascinating to grow. Winter purslane, also known as Claytonia, or miner's lettuce, got its most famous common name during the California gold rush of the mid-1800s. Prospectors living in remote mining camps were surviving on almost nothing but preserved meat and hardtack. Scurvy was a genuine and serious threat. And growing wild in the hills and valleys all around those mining camps was this small, cold-hardy plant with distinctive round leaves. The miners gathered it, ate it fresh, and it kept them healthy through brutal winters. It is rich in vitamin C, and its flat, disc-shaped leaves, which appear to have the stem growing right through the center, are unlike anything else you'll find in a vegetable garden. The taste is mild, slightly sweet, and wonderfully succulent. Similar in texture to lamb's lettuce but with a gentler, cleaner flavor. It works beautifully in winter salads, pairs brilliantly with citrus segments and sharp cheese, and can also be wilted briefly into soups as a finishing green. Plant winter purslane in July, and the seeds will germinate as the soil begins to cool towards late summer. Plants grow through autumn and winter, and then, when the small white flowers form in late winter and early spring, they self-pollinate and produce seeds that scatter back into the surrounding soil. The following autumn, new plants appear in the same spot without you planting a single thing. In zones 6 to 9, which covers most of the continental United States and most of the United Kingdom, winter purslane behaves as if it were perennial, not because the roots survive, but because the seed cycle is so consistent and reliable that there is always a new generation ready to take over. The one mistake to avoid is sowing into hot, dry soil. Winter purslane seeds have a natural dormancy mechanism. They will not germinate if the soil is too warm. Sow into a shaded, moist spot in July. Beneath taller summer crops like tomatoes or beans is ideal, and germination will follow naturally as temperatures begin to ease. Number 3. Borage. Number 3 is the most visually dramatic plant on this entire list. And if you've never grown borage before, you are genuinely missing one of the garden's greatest overachievers. Borage produces flowers in a shade of blue so vivid, so electric, that it stops people in their tracks. Star-shaped, brilliant, and so striking that gardeners in England have been freezing borage flowers inside ice cubes for summer drinks since the Victorian era. The flowers have a gentle, refreshing cucumber flavor that makes them a perfect garnish for cold drinks, summer salads, and elegant desserts. The leaves taste of cucumber too and can be eaten young and tender. Every single part of this plant earns its place in your kitchen and your garden simultaneously. But the reason borage holds the number 3 position on this list is what it does for everything around it. Borage is what experienced growers call a dynamic accumulator. Its deep taproot draws up minerals from deep layers of soil that most plants can never reach, and brings those minerals into its leaves. When those leaves break down and decompose, whether through composting or simply as the plant dies back naturally at the end of the season, those minerals are released into the upper layers of the soil where your other plants can actually use them. It is essentially a natural fertilizer system, built into a plant that simultaneously feeds your bees, decorates your drinks, and plants itself every single year without any help from you. The self-seeding reputation of borage is almost legendary among gardeners who have grown it. Plant it once, and for years afterwards you will find borage appearing in corners of your garden. You've never deliberately planted it. The seeds are resilient, they travel, and they germinate with remarkable reliability. Plant borage in July, give it one season to establish, and from that point forward it manages itself completely. The critical mistake is planting it too close to other crops without appreciating how large it grows. A mature borage plant can reach 90 centimeters tall, and equally wide. Sow seeds directly into the ground. Borage has a deep taproot and seriously dislikes being transplanted. About 1.5 centimeters deep, spaced 30 centimeters apart, in poor well-drained soil. Rich soil pushes it into leaf production at the expense of flowers. And just in case you've been watching for a while, and you still haven't hit that subscribe button, I need you to think about this. Everything you've learned today, every plant on this list, every planting tip and self-seeding secret, none of it reaches you if you're not subscribed. There are people right now who are missing videos exactly like this one because they didn't subscribe when they had the chance. That doesn't have to be you. Hit the button. Turn on the bell. You've come this far. Don't let the next video pass you by. Number 2, Claytonia/miner's lettuce as a garden system. Number 2 takes miner's lettuce beyond just a plant on a list and turns it into a complete garden strategy, because the way you use Claytonia's self-seeding habit is what separates gardeners who get occasional results from gardeners whose plots never go bare. Once Claytonia is established and allowed to self-seed freely across a section of your garden, it forms a living, breathing, edible ground cover. It suppresses weeds by taking up the space where weeds would otherwise grow. It protects soil moisture by covering bare ground. It produces continuous harvests of mild, nutritious leaves through the coldest months of the year. And it does all of this completely on its own, without irrigation schedules, without feeding, without any meaningful intervention from you. Experienced gardeners in the Pacific Northwest, where Claytonia grows natively across Washington, Oregon, and California, scatter seeds beneath their fruit trees and simply let the plant colonize the ground underneath. It grows through the coldest months when bare soil would otherwise be losing nutrients to rain and erosion. It feeds early pollinators in late winter, when almost nothing else in the garden is in bloom. And then it self-seeds, and starts the entire cycle again without anyone asking it to. The real insight here is that miner's lettuce is not just a salad crop. It is an ecological tool that does 3 separate jobs at the same time: producing food, protecting your soil, and providing habitat for beneficial insects. The strategic move is to allow a few plants to go fully to seed each spring rather than harvesting everything. Those seeds scatter across a gradually wider area of your garden with each passing year, expanding the self-seeding colony without any effort from you. Within 2 or 3 seasons, you will have a section of your garden that is permanently covered, permanently productive, and permanently self-sustaining. Number 1, Scorzonera. Number 1. This is the one I've been building toward. And I need you to stay with me here, because if you've never heard of Scorzonera before, what I'm about to share is going to genuinely stop you in your tracks. Scorzonera hispanica, black salsify, viper's grass. It goes by many names across Europe, but in most of the English-speaking world, particularly across America, it goes by one name above all others: unknown. And that is the real tragedy of this plant. Scorzonera is a root vegetable with a striking black outer skin and a bright white interior. The Italian name Scorzonera means black bark. Medieval herbalists across Europe believed the root was an antidote to snake venom, hence one of its older names, viper's grass. And whether that particular claim holds up to modern science or not, what absolutely does hold up is the fact that Scorzonera was one of the most important and beloved vegetables in European cuisine from the 1600s right through the early 20th century. In Belgium, France, Germany, and the Netherlands, it was a staple winter root. Chefs compared its flavor to asparagus, delicate, slightly sweet, with a subtle earthiness and a gentle nuttiness that makes it genuinely special on the plate. Cooked and served with hollandaise or simply with brown butter, it was considered a true winter delicacy. And then the supermarket age arrived, and Scorzonera disappeared from home gardens almost entirely. It doesn't photograph well on a commercial shelf. It doesn't have a snappy marketing angle. It looks like a long, thin, dark root, and most people have absolutely no idea what to do with it. So it faded from view. And generations of gardeners in America and the UK grew up never knowing it existed. Here is why Scorzonera is number 1 on this list, and why it earns that position over every other plant we've discussed today. It is the most self-sufficient, lowest maintenance, highest reward crop you can put into the ground in July. Scorzonera needs to be sown from seed directly into prepared soil. Its taproot is long, fragile, and breaks easily if you try to transplant it. But once those seeds are in the ground in July, Scorzonera takes care of itself. It is drought-tolerant once established. It needs no feeding. It doesn't bolt in heat. It doesn't collapse in cold. It simply grows, slowly, steadily, developing a root that can exceed 30 centimeters in length by the time autumn arrives and harvest begins. But here is the detail that makes Scorzonera genuinely extraordinary, and the reason it sits at number 1. Scorzonera is perennial. Almost every other root vegetable you can name is an annual. You harvest it, it's gone, you start again. Scorzonera does not work that way. If you leave some roots in the ground instead of harvesting everything, those roots continue growing the following year. They get longer. They develop better flavor. And in their second year, the plant sends up beautiful yellow dandelion-like flowers that eventually set seed, dropping those seeds directly into the soil around them. Free plants. Every year. Permanently. In Belgium and the Netherlands, where Scorzonera is still grown commercially and taken seriously as a culinary ingredient, market gardeners have maintained the same strains for generations simply by allowing a few plants to flower and seed each year. The same plant. The same spot. The same rich flavor. Year after year after year. You can build exactly that same system in your own garden, starting this July. The one mistake that destroys Scorzonera is growing it in stony or compacted soil. The roots need to grow straight and deep without obstruction. If they hit a stone, they fork. If the soil is compacted, they stay short and thin. Prepare your soil deeply before sowing. Ideally to 40 or 45 centimeters, and remove every stone you find. Raised beds filled with loose, fine, well-draining compost are genuinely perfect for this crop. Sow seeds directly in July, about half to 1 centimeter deep, in rows spaced 25 to 30 centimeters apart. Thin seedlings to 10 to 15 centimeters once they appear. Water regularly during dry spells. Never add fresh manure. It causes the roots to fork badly. Harvest from October onwards, or leave roots in the ground through winter to develop even further. One final thing about Scorzonera seed, and this matters more than it does for almost any other crop on this list. Scorzonera seed loses its ability to germinate very quickly. Unlike most vegetable seeds that stay viable for several years in storage, Scorzonera seed from last season may simply fail to sprout. Always use the freshest seed you can find. And once you have plants that flower in their second year, collect that seed yourself and sow it the very same season. Your own seed from your own garden is the freshest seed you will ever have. That is number 1. Scorzonera. A root vegetable that has been feeding Europe for 4 centuries, perennial in nature, self-seeding once established, and asking almost nothing of you in return. The most rewarding crop on this entire list, and almost nobody is growing it. So there you have it. 12 self-seeding vegetables to plant in July, and a completely different way of thinking about what your garden can be. Not just a place you pour time and money into every spring. A living system that refills itself, season after season, with you doing less work every single year. Endive sweetens with every frost. Perpetual spinach that harvests all winter and seeds itself in spring. Landcress that replaces expensive watercress and plants itself in the shade. Dill that defends your crops while it reseeds. Nasturtium that traps pests, feeds you, and comes back forever. Calabrese that outperforms standard broccoli in autumn. Okra that transforms July heat into months of harvest. Amaranth that gives you leaves and grain from a single plant. Winter purslane that covers your soil and feeds you through the cold. Miner's lettuce that turns itself into living ground cover. Borage that feeds your bees, enriches your soil, and plants itself year after year. And Scorzonera, the forgotten root that may just become the most treasured crop in your entire garden. That is your July planting list. That is your self-filling garden. And the window is open right now. If this video helped you, and I genuinely hope it did, please leave a comment below and tell me which plant on this list surprised you the most. I want to know. And if you are still watching this and you have not subscribed yet, there is a very real chance the next video, the one with the information that would have changed your garden completely, never reaches you. That is not something I want for you. And honestly, it shouldn't be something you want for yourself either. Subscribe. Turn on the bell. Share this with someone whose garden deserves better. And I will see you in the next one.